You boys know what's about to happen to you. You'd leave now.
Some consider these traits to be toxic, such as undesirable in the men of today. We consider these traits such as these not only to be desirable, but to be appreciated and celebrated. Welcome to the Toxic Male Appreciation Show, hosted by and La Reina Creole. Welcome to the safe space for the toxic male.
Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm Reina Creole, and with me is her of positive fandom, and this is a toxic male appreciation podcast where we appreciate all of you toxic males out there and those traditional masculine values. So we love you guys, and this podcast is dedicated to celebrating you and celebrating those in pop culture who we also associate with those values.
Absolutely, Lorraine. Yeah, we love toxic males. We reject modernity and we embrace masculinity. It's
Yes.
all about masculine characteristics that we love: the caregiver, the protector, the father figure, the brother figure, the person who helps you, often gives you advice, makes sure you don't mess up, but also has masculine physical traits as well. And those are exhibited in the entertainment that we love. Lorraine, there's so much toxic male out there, and we're here to appreciate every single one of it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And even more so with, we'll say, certain actors that we've grown up watching, you know, especially as like a young girl who loved 80s action films, and especially those 80s action stars, those toxic male action stars where you're just like, wow, wonder it would be cool if my dad was like that. And I could, and I could hang out with them, and nobody could touch me. It would be so cool. It'd be so cool. One of those actors unfortunately passed away so suddenly that I literally thought that it was a hoax, but it turns out that it wasn't, and that would be Carl Weathers. I'm still in shock about this. I'm used to the, oh, it's the death hoax. No, I'm still alive. I'm still alive. I'm still kicking. But I saw this, and when I did, immediately I started checking the trades, because when the trades start lining up on all the same stories, like Hollywood Reporter, um, what else? Hollywood Reporter,
A variety.
Deadline, Variety,
Mhm,
TMZ also,
mhm.
th- then it's this is a heartbreaker, for me, because Apollo Creed, that was like the man. That character was so iconic, and he's done so many things. But you tell me, what was your thoughts when you finally heard this news?
Well, of course, I couldn't believe it, Lorena. We've been seeing Carl Weathers. Um, how old was he? Was he in his almost 80? Lorena,
Yeah.
a mature, incredibly fit man who never looked his age as he got older, still starring, still in projects. I just saw him last year in 2023 at Star
Oh
Wars
my
Celebration
gosh.
in London, and he looked fantastic. And it's so hard to believe, so hard to believe a man whose career is going strong as Grief Karga in the Mandalorian series, who just puts a smile on your face with his charisma, his charm, added so much to the Mandalorian series. The idea that he is gone, it's such a shock. I was getting ready to hear him. They kind of joked about Grief Karga's outfit. Lorraine, I remember, I'm sure you've seen it, where every season it became more grandiose and
Yes.
and the first thing that I thought about, really, you were talking about Mardi Gras, and there's this tradition with people marching in the parade, and they do have elaborate costumes. And I thought to myself, gee, I wonder if the writers and the costume designers are kind of playing on that a little bit from a cultural aspect. His grandeur and his hope for the future in the story, and how he always encouraged Mando. It's true that their relationship was bumpy in the beginning, but he always encouraged Mando and to kind of settle down and make a new life and start here, and aren't things going to be great, along with co-star Gina, when they were nice to her, and she was such an integral part of the series. I know, and that the show lost its mojo when they pushed her aside. That's probably, I think, the number one reason why season 3 was not what it should have been. But the combination of him and Gina, and this whole new era, I think, for a series that really was not doing that great, now reinvigorated with someone who has so much talent. We've watched him growing up. We've watched him. My favorite really is Action Jackson. We watched him in something like that with Vanity. I think that he had sex appeal, just exudes this. You and I talked about how we liked him in Terminator and Predator, and how
Mm-hmm.
physique and how important all that stuff is to entertainment. What an entertainer this man has been. And I think, people really, it's hard to imagine him not being in The Mandalorian for this reason, Lorena. At 76, who do you know looks like this at 76? I don't know anybody else who looks like
Oh,
this.
no, I don't. I don't either at all. And the fact that he doesn't look his age kind of preserves that immortality, especially to fans like us who've grown up watching him. It's just like, he's never going to age. He's going to be around, for, forever. And I think that makes it even more devastating when we lose someone like him. I mean, I've seen, it's like everyone has their political spin, but that didn't really bother me. It is just like his spirit, he always seemed happy that the fans loved his work, whether no matter what film or television aspect of him, he just always seemed happy that the fans just wanted to see him and experience him, and just how much, his body of work inspired, so many people. So many folks. It's just, I know it's super sad. But we, like we do on this show with our toxic male pop icons, we go through their filmography, because thanks to the gift of film, thanks to the gift of streaming, we have their performances preserved for present and future people to go back and see just how amazing this guy is. And oh yeah, IMDb is quick. They went and put his death date up, but he was born in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly why I thought immediately when we saw him as Grief Karga, and he donned those incredible, robes that he wore as he, started off in the planet. I think the planet, I can't remember the name of the planet, where they were on, where the Mandalorians were, and he was kind of handling the guild, and so important, an important person, certainly somebody that the Mandalorian, they needed him to survive, to get those jobs. And he changed over the past 4 years. It's been almost 4 years, Lorena, how that character has changed from someone who kind of does hands out these jobs, and now he's pretty much this, governor, if you will, of the planet, and things have changed tremendously, and his costumes and his what he's wearing have certainly reflected that change in status. And it's been wonderful to watch him go from, someone who is so knowledgeable of the galaxy and the trade, and then to see him now creating a new world for people who want to settle on this planet and are excited. And, even, Mando and Grogu got their own little place, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And it really is fun. This is what we like in entertainment. We like to see these wonderful actors who we cherish play roles that are hopeful, that are meaningful. His role had so much meaning, Lorena, to Mando and Grogu, one of the most popular new characters in Star Wars. Now, hopefully, I thought that maybe with the new film, there was going to be this resurgence,
Mm-hmm.
revitalization, which he seems to bring in, praying that they were going to bring Gina back. I promise you, it's less I'm going to say anything about that. But honestly, Lorena, we do need talented actors like this to give us that grounding, make it feel real. You can't create a whole new world and have actors who don't know what they're doing. And he knows what he's doing. He knows how to make things appear to be, relatable, tangible. This is a real place that he's created. I'm convinced it's out there. I'm convinced it's out there. I'm convinced that his planet is out there. And I'm also convinced that this character is part of the heart and soul of the series. He always managed to make something special when he was playing a role, Raina, in a way that's, unforgettable. I remember being online at Star Wars Celebration last year with my friend Russ, and looking over
Mm-hmm.
left, and there was Carl Weathers, at his meet and greet with fans eager to see him. What a fantastic memory. I never ever thought that would be the last time. First of all, I didn't know I was even going to see him, but I never thought that would be the last time. I regret not getting tickets for that. I didn't even know he was going to be there. But what
Yeah.
an unbelievable memory to have. I just can't even believe it. He was just amazing. And I thought those robes, Lorena, as they progressed, and there was a meme about it, kind of like how his robes kept getting more elaborate. And I said, but look at the meme really carefully. It does kind of look like a Mardi Gras kind of costume. And I thought, yeah, I think that's really interesting. If they ever were going to incorporate Mardi Gras into any planet or any kind of celebration like this, why not do it on that one? Look at it. Look.
He looks like he is there's the with the floats that are in Mardi Gras, the Mardi Gras parades, which they're themed after certain ones. One of three of the most elaborate ones are Endymion, Bacchus, and the last day on Mardi Gras, which is Crew Rex. And usually the king on the main float, I mean, seriously regal looking, robes like this. So you're absolutely right. It's very opulent, and yeah, totally reminds me of that. So I loved it because we all noticed it. We're like,
Mhm.
wow, we first saw him, he had these he looked like, hey, I'm just, wrangling bounty hunters, giving he looked really rough. And then more you see him and see him, it's just like, man, his war group has a serious upgrade going on. And we love it.
Yeah, it was very noticeable and certainly quite appropriate for what had happened. And I loved how they decided to acknowledge certain things in this place, how, the IG unit had saved everyone. He always has great suggestions for everybody. He even had a plot line. He put it aside for Grogu and Mando. And I thought that this man thinks of everything. He was always much more than what the galaxy had, the cards that the galaxy gave him to play. He was always much more than that. And I
Hmm.
was hoping that we would see him as a major player in the galaxy at this point, because of the importance and the location of this planet, and certainly his ability to make things work, which he did. He could, make anything work, it seemed. He knew exactly what to do, no matter what the circumstance was. I loved it.
Hmm.
I think that that's exactly the kind of characters we would expect to see on the edges of space, on the realms of space. I believe it's an outer rim planet, but I could be wrong. But
Yes,
you
it
know,
is. Mm-hmm.
in an outer rim planet, in a place where you're on the edge, he can negotiate and speak with even the most dangerous and scary individuals. He knows what he's doing. This is a man who's been there, he's done that, and so much more. Even very artful, very tactful. When things got tough, he knew to pick up a weapon. Like there's all sorts of things that he knows. Maybe he's a combination of like a Han Solo and perhaps even I can't remember the other character's name, but you know who I'm thinking of. Lando Calrissian together, if you will, style of ability. I don't know for sure, but I fantasize about this because he managed to handle a lot of very dangerous situations. And because he was older, we knew he had a past. There's no doubt about that, but I certainly really wanted to see if they were going to make a 1/6 scale figure of this character. So much
Mm-hmm.
potential, Lorena, in this upcoming movie. So much potential for this character in his 70s. Carl Weathers was just getting started with establishing a major character in a major IP. I don't know anybody who gets that opportunity.
No, I don't. I don't either. I don't either. And just in case you folks, some of you think you're like, oh, is he really that big of a figure? Yes. So let's start at the beginning, at least for me.
Yeah.
Um, the movie Rocky. As someone who was born in Philadelphia, raised in Philadelphia, Rocky. You're you know that movie. So the fact that Carl Weathers was in this film as Apollo Creed, the perfect foil to Rocky in this film. And yes, to spoil it for some of you, um, shame if you haven't seen it yet. Apollo Creed winds up winning the match, but Rocky winds up winning the hearts of the city. And then when you go to Rocky 2, where Rocky is basically Apollo's trainer, you know, those roles switch and they're no longer like adversaries, more like allies. But just to see the strength of his acting with Sylvester Stallone, he Apollo Creed is again one of those iconic characters in pop culture because of Carl Weathers' performance in this film.
Yeah, Lorena, I couldn't have said it any better myself because what we have in this film, and of course, Sylvester Stallone is a genius in writing and in playing this role, this character that he plays of Rocky Balboa. And we had a situation where, Rocky often, sometimes it doesn't matter if you win or lose the fight. A lot of times it's really how you play the game in what we're seeing in this film, and this is really true in life of what's important. And for Rocky, the most important thing for him, at least from what I can see, is his family and the people that he loves. And it just so happens that through the years, Apollo Creed ends out being one of those people that he loves. We know that the boxing community, especially where he is, some of them trust only certain people, and it can be a very tight knit community. And
Mhm.
how could you not be impressed with this incredibly polished black boxer played by Carl Weathers, who is incredibly popular? He's perfect. You can tell in real life and in this person who is so well conditioned, very, very smooth and so eloquent in the way that he presents himself. And you have this fight, this underdog fight. The problem that the character had was that he was losing popularity. There was this sentiment that he could not be relatable to people, that he didn't have fans. And the person who's the underdog, everybody loves an underdog. Rocky,
Mhm.
where they fight, and as you said, Lorena, Apollo wins it. However, the popular sentiment, who the fans are behind, even though he won the fight, it's Rocky who comes out on top. It's a very interesting dynamic and very interesting, especially in the boxing world, very reflective of how favor can shift from one athlete to another. Very indicative of the athlete who has all the money in the world, all the potential. He maybe the
I
greatest
love
athlete of
this.
all time. Oh, he's so wonderful in this
I
beautiful representation of America, an American
Yeah.
who's risen to the top is exactly what you imagine when you see a boxer like this. He is the perfect man, the perfect athlete, and he represents that. But something was missing, Lorena. I think it's very interesting. Something was missing. He needed to do the end of doing this incredible fight. And what an incredible battle this was. And then it carries over into the next film where, Rocky, maybe it's not the next one, but Rocky himself has to fight an even stronger foe. When they
Yeah.
start to box outside of the United States, or opponents outside the United States, we see an incredible struggle where now they're depending on one another. They have a beautiful training montage that you and I love of them running on the beach together with their legs in unison, and they slow it down so you can just kind of see them running together. This gorgeous, I just love that.
Yes, that montage of them running on the beach together. It's one of, again, when you talk about pop culture, like iconic scenes from films and pop culture, that one of Rocky and Apollo Creed running on the beach is amazing, especially seeing Carl Weathers running, and it's just absolutely fabulous.
You really can
It's
see the
absolutely
toxic male
fabulous.
beauty in this, Lorena. This film is all about toxic male appreciation. We see things that Sylvester Stallone does and that Carl Weather do with these characters that are indicative of, I think, traditional toxic male values of American men, and perhaps also men outside of the United States. But there's a scene I always talk about, this scene where Rocky says, he has a job at this factory, and they say, we're cutting expenses, you're the lowest man on the totem pole, we got to let you go. And he goes, well, you know what, I'll take a reduction in pay if you keep me on. And it's exactly that type of thing where men are doing this all over the United States and have been doing it for like 100 years, willing to take a cut in pay. They just want to be able to work, they just want to be able to provide for their families. And we see this happen time and time again, where someone will go ahead and do that. It didn't work out for Rocky in that sense because they have a union and the union says we can't pay you less money. But
Right.
it's little things like this where they can take an obstacle and they're not going to let it defeat them. They're just going to keep going. I think it's when two boxers enter the ring, both of them think they're going to win. They do. They don't go into the ring thinking they're going to lose. And it was very interesting to wonder who was going to win this fight. And I think that in the end, when each individual boxer decides they're going to go in here and the person is perhaps an equal opponent or maybe even better, they're not thinking they're going to lose this fight. I think it's very interesting dynamic. This is the obstacles that are in the path of your way, but the obstacle is often the way. They both have to fight one another. In a lot of circumstances, they have to fight one another in order to go on and proceed in their life in a certain way. I think that is what's so amazing and challenging about boxing. They did such an extraordinary job with this. Carl Weathers was absolutely extraordinary. This never would have worked without Carl Weathers.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't, because of just not only the strength of his performance, but also the strength of his physique as well. Rocky needed a foil that you believe could, beat him easily. And Carl Weathers, as you know, that conditioned athlete, also with respect to his family. He's like, I have this lifestyle for my family that I need to keep up. And if, that means I have to be the showman, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the showman before, I completely, completely beat you, you know. And that whole performance and that camaraderie between the two of them, and I made a mistake earlier, carried on into Rocky 3
Yes.
when Apollo's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna fight Drago."
Yes. Yes, and certainly that was another, and of course another iconic actor who c goes into the fold of playing, a Russian boxer, and of course we see Brigitte Nielsen also, his,
Mhm.
there with him, who, is amazing, and suddenly it's not just about boxing a fighter from Russia, it feels almost as if the weight of America was on Apollo's shoulders in this film, and it was heartbreaking, Lorena. I'm still heartbroken. I still watch this. Yes, is Mr. T also in there?
I
Another
totally messed up. Y'all are gonna laugh at me. You're like, "Oh my god, you don't know your Rocky films."
No,
It's
no,
been a
it's
while,
okay.
it's been a
I can't remember which one, but I know what you're talking about. He has to fight Drago. It might be 3 or 4. Um,
I think it's probably 4. I know, folks. Be
no, it's
patient with
okay.
us. It's
It's
been a
all good.
while.
We understand, like, I'm the same way, and what ends up happening is that there's this weight on his shoulders when he has to go fight outside. He has to go fight outside of the United States. All of a sudden, it feels as if the weight of America is on Apollo's shoulders and also on Rocky's shoulders. Very interesting dynamic between these 2 men as they go from fight to fight. Their relationship continues. Oh, there it is. Yes, there we go. That is what we're talking about. And it's just so beautiful to see these men in peak condition, just have these incredible physiques. They spend hours every day maintaining this look, Lorena. It's not easy for them to maintain this look. This was not something you can just step in the gym tomorrow and get. This is years and years of conditioning, years and years of training, years and years of dedication. I sound like Debbie Allen in you earn it from sweat. You earn it from, like she's like, but it's true. It's true. This was not something that happened to them overnight. They worked very hard to get to this point. And I'm going to acknowledge Mr. T as well. So when they get to Rocky 4, Lorena, that's when we see this incredible fight, this heartbreaking fight between Apollo Creed and Drago. I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't know that was going to happen at all. I'm still so shocked by all of this happening. And certainly, this was such a shock. He had this appearance, he's not a boxer, but he has this appearance of being unbeatable. And that's the thing that I thought was unbelievable. We saw that incredible Living in America promo when um,
Mhm.
Apollo Creed shows up to it, and they were like, no, 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 let him have his thing. We'll get him in the ring. And that's exactly what
Mhm.
happened. It's a shock. It's a total shock. It's really devastating. I think that it broke um Rocky a little bit. And we hear this incredible soliloquy from one of the trainers who takes Rocky under his wing when he has to fight Drago. And he says, I raised him. He was like a son to me. And I raised Apollo. And it's this beautiful moment in the film that I thought, and I realized that a lot of this is about the people that you love in this community. I was watching a science fiction story where this woman says the most important thing is that you have your people and you have their back. And this was
Mhm.
exhibited more than I think in any other film that I've seen, where Rocky had his back and he had Apollo's back. Whether they were opponents or not, we saw something like this, that incredible camaraderie between the 2 of them. And of course, the Hollywood producers are like, you can't kill Apollo. If you do this, it'll end the series. If you do this, but Lorena, upon retrospect, upon 20, 30 years afterwards, this was something that was in the storyline. And, even Sylvester Stallone will say you don't kill your heroes. But in this particular case, it was a character that he let go of. However, his legacy still resonates.
It does, and as much as it literally broke my heart, because I can still see, the towel going in slow motion, and it's too late, and Apollo's dead. That, in a way, made him immortal in a way. So much immortal that that's where the Creed series comes from, and that's well, not the series, but but the Creed films come from where it goes right back to that point. That is such an emotional inflection. And Carl Weathers just talk about performances of a lifetime. That was just such an amazing performance coming from him. Death scenes are not easy, but when they're done well, you're just like, I hate to see I hate to see him go. I really do. And speaking of death scenes, I know, yeah, I'm gonna spoil another one for y'all. If you watch Predator, okay,
Yeah.
and the way his character went out, I mean, it was just something, it was just something else, like, to see. Because coming off of the first Rocky movie, and then you see Carl Weathers in here. I'm trying to see if I can find, oh, here it is. Yeah, here we go. This is an ensemble film,
Yeah.
but Carl Weathers' character, oh my gosh, and I'm blanking on his character's name, but he was incredible. These are all a bunch of extremely fit men, toxic, toxic males. The camaraderie, you love the camaraderie so much that every time one of them is killed, you feel it. And then Carl is the last one to go. He's like the last one in front of Schwarzenegger, and just how he goes out in his performance, just uh shame he had to go out like that, but man, he went out swinging. It was great.
Absolutely, Lorena, and certainly we saw such an incredible performance by the entire cast, but featured, as you and I have spoken about when we have actually watched this film together, you could always see Carl Weathers and Schwarzenegger in the front, and then by the end, some of my favorite, maybe my favorite part, by the end of all of this, we also do see clearly both of them well oiled and placed, sort of in the front of the pack with just their vests on at that point. They're only wearing the vests. So so it's like it's kind of like full chest exposed. It's very, very indicative of wanting to show how fit these guys are. And certainly I think at that in that era, it was important to see conditioned males be protectors and be fighters. And I do love so much of this film because they did that very specifically.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And man, this is a film that will never get old to go and see. I would have to say that second to his performance as as Apollo Creed, his performance in Predator, again, it's just so absolutely unforgettable. So let's see. We're gonna move. There's so much stuff. So definitely check out his IMDb page. But you're gonna have to indulge us as we go over as we go over our favorites here. So let's see. Oh yeah, we gotta talk about this one. You cannot talk about Carl Weathers without talking about Action Jackson. Okay.
This is my favorite Carl Weathers film, and of course, it's got, the leading lady who's one of my favorites. I think her name is Vanity, guys, and of course, she was such a hot sex symbol at this time, and the pairing of the 2 of them, this was absolute gold, and we haven't really seen anything like this. We're seeing, directors and casting agents pair people together, but they're not the right combinations. They're not as hot as what we've seen in the '80s and '90s.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, but it's the truth. It's just not as hot, not as provocative, not as sexy. And I think that he just exuded so much sex appeal, along with his leading lady here. Between the 2 of them, it was just unbelievable what we saw in this fun story. Of with Carl Weathers playing, the leading role is just so wonderful. If you've ever seen this, I remember seeing this in the movie theater in the '80s. And I worked in the theater that it was in, so I got to see it about a bazillion times. It was so much fun watching something like this. There he is with the oiled shot. You can kind of see him showing his muscles. Look at the two of them. They're together. That is hot, guys. That is what we're talking about when we're talking about a fun action film. Sexy leading lady, sexy leading man, just a whole bunch of fun things in it. I just want to go back to this time so badly, Lorena, and just enjoy it all over again without any kind of hesitation. Just enjoy the fun of it all. And he was perfect, looking so dapper, almost James Bondish in this poster. It's one of my favorite poster, Lorena, of Carl Weathers with Vanity. Just a perfect combination. I wish they did more films. I wish they did a whole bunch of them together. And certainly I would have watched all of them. What did you think of this film, Lorraine?
I have so many great things to say about Action Jackson. This is one of those films, and I'm gonna go say it the first. I mean, I'll die on this hill. That had no problem showing Black men as healthy sexual objects. Black men allowed to showcase their sexuality as part of the whole entire package. So, not sexuality for exploitation, but sexuality to sell the movie, sexuality for who they are um, as a man. And that's the big appeal of this movie. It's not like, okay, it's not like, say, Bill Cosby. You put Bill Cosby in the movie. It's not like Beverly Hills Cop, where you're totally focused on Eddie Murphy as Axel Foley. There isn't really that much of a sexual dimension to that.
Mm-hmm.
This is all of it, on display. So another reason why I love this film, and Carl Weathers sells it perfectly, perfectly, especially paired with Vanity.
Yeah. Yes. She had talent. And she should have gone much farther in her career. Truth be told, in that era, there wasn't as many opportunities for women, especially African American women. It just wasn't there. So,
Right.
she was kind of fighting an uphill battle for that. Even as beautiful as she was, she passed in 2016, I believe. Even as beautiful as
Yeah.
Vanity was, even she had difficulty navigating Hollywood. Her career should have been much more extensive, but the 80s
hmm
was a tough time for that. And what a perfect pair they were. This poster alone shows you the perfect, synergy between the two of them. And there should have been Action Jackson, whatever the second line would be, fights whatever, or Action Jackson something, like as
hmm
series should have gone on and on and on with multiple movies. We didn't get it, but that's what it should have been. I just loved how this really kind of started something that I think should have continued and might have continued if even today, if Hollywood wasn't so kind of weird about using good looking people.
Yes. Good looking people. If I want to see regular looking people, I'll go to Walmart. I'm
Yeah.
not trying I'm not trying to put down my money to see average looking men and average looking women. It is what it is, folks. I mean, it's smart to go, where the money is. Yeah. But anyway, anyway, go on to some more things that Carl Weathers has been in. He's been in the TV series In the Heat of the Night, and this was so many actors made this series just absolutely amazing. In the Heat of the Night.
Absolutely. And he has actually been in a lot of television shows, including the $6 Million Man. I think he did something with
Wow.
$6 Million Man once. He really has had such a stellar career in so many different shows, in so many different roles. And it's because he's incredibly marketable. He looks good on camera. Look at him. He looks fantastic. This
He
is
looks
what you
great.
need to see on a television show or on a
Mhm.
movie. This is the look we want of somebody like that. And he just enhances Carol there. It's amazing how the two of them look amazing together. It would have been great if he could have had a few seasons on with Carol O'Connor there, but I think Carl and his demand for movies probably drew him away from a lot of television, being cast as just in one role. Although I think he did do, was it The Wire, or was it he did do kind of a long stay on one television show. I can't remember what it was. I'm actually looking at a list, so yeah, I didn't memorize it all. But he was on one other show. Let's see, called Arrested Development. He did four.
Ah, okay. Okay.
That is actually not the one I was thinking of, but he was on another cop show where he was a regular.
Chicago
Maybe I'm wrong.
Justice?
Maybe I'm wrong. Shoot, I thought he was on. Maybe it's The Shield. I'm not sure. I thought he was on one show where he was. Oh, yeah, here it is.
Or Street Justice?
Maybe it was one of those. I could be getting this wrong, but I thought he was on another show, um, and I could be wrong. But all this time, while he was even, I guess, while he was doing his uh, part of his um, part of his football career, he was also acting. So, I think what's really interesting about this is, I don't know whether that was his original intention. Obviously, if he's playing for the NFL and for other leagues outside of the United States, his intention was to be a football player. And it is kind of interesting. We have had other football players that have made it into acting as well. But I think, he might be the most successful one. What do you think, Lorena?
Hmm. I would definitely say so. Yeah, he's up there. And want to say with the likes of Carl Weathers, how he is one of the pioneers who made it very popular for sports figures, especially football players, to make that leap from sports into acting. So I would have to definitely agree with you on, uh, on that. Not that it's on the same, it's a different level. Like, for example, Terry Bradshaw, okay? You see him in movies and stuff like that, and you're just, "Did he play football?" And you see all these movies where football players were making cameos and everything in there. But Carl Weathers was more of a serious actor, and another more recent, I would say more recent example of this would be John David Washington,
Mhm. Mhm.
because he was playing football before he was acting, because, acting was his dad Denzel's thing, but, you know, he wound up going from football to acting. So, folks, you want to watch a really good series, In the Heat of the Night is amazing. So many people who were in that series, great acting, lots of dramatic, dramatic acting, and I think everyone who was attached pretty much to that show had like their careers launched like even higher, because it was such a popular show.
It really was, and it to be honest with you, it represented the South, and there weren't so
Hmm.
many shows that represented the South at that time. This is in the
Exactly.
80s, and it wasn't necessarily anything a lot of people wanted to tackle. After the very popular, I think it was based on a play or a book, um, that kind of launched the topic into mainstream. It was very successful on television. And Carol O'Connor, who was in, I think, in the movie, um, was it Sidney Poitier who was with him in the original?
Yes. Yes.
Along with Sidney Poitier, who became, obviously a black um, police officer who was going to be working with Carol O'Connor, and the friction between the two. What I loved was that as the years progressed, Carol O'Connor's character embraced, his colleagues, and that certainly was something that I wasn't expecting to see, but happy to see in the series.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. There's so much stuff we're running. We're like trying to run through so many of these. But yeah, if there was, and I need this series on DVD. I need it in 4K.
Yes,
It is.
yes.
It's just so good. It's just so good. Back in, well, for me and a lot of folks our age, the golden age television for us. Okay.
Yes, it was. It really
Were these
was.
shows that were shows from the 80s. Speaking of 80s people, all right, Adam Sandler, who of course is in our age bracket. One of the things that I loved about his films was him bringing in like these iconic pop cultures from our childhood, like him having to fight with Bob Barker, okay, in this film. And not only that, but the guy that they got to, teach him how to channel his channel his anger in a more positive direction, you know. Carl Weathers as his as his golf coach.
I love it. I love it. It really is a very interesting choice, and certainly, who does not wanna be in a movie with Carl Weathers? Um, he was very lucky to get Carl Weathers, in the movie, and, I think that he Carl Weathers always adds this special essence to a film that you can't quite put your finger on it, but it does elevate the film quite a bit, having a legitimate, star and someone a former professional athlete, legitimate star of the screen, in your film. There really are very few roles that Carl Weathers cannot play. He's very good at playing serious roles in drama, and certainly being on the screen with Adam Sandler, I think demonstrates his ability to change and do other things as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And again, being in the position to put the pop culture icons of your childhood, and you're able to act because Carl Weathers is up there. So like finding out that Carl Weathers is in the movie, we're all like, oh my God, that's so freaking awesome. That's so freaking awesome. But even so, just the way that he handles certain lines, because again, this is my darn favorite exchange. Again, those of you who have weak constitutions and love being PC, this is going to piss you off, but I don't care. My favorite scene, Chubbs is like, back in 1965, Sports Illustrated said I was going to be the next Arnold Palmer. So Happy Gilmore says, yeah, what happened? Chubb says they wouldn't let me play on the pro tour anymore. Happy Gilmore says, oh, I'm sorry, because you're black. Chubb's is like, hell no, damned alligator bit my hand off, and he shows him the comedic timing on that was just hilarious. And, Adam Sandler's like, oh my God. And Chubb's like, yeah, tournament down in Florida. Hooked my ball in the rough down by the lake. Damn alligator just popped up, cut me down to my prime. He got me, but I tore one of those bastards' eyes out, though. Look at that. And he just how he did that with the comedic timing and with the with the fake hand. Again, just scenes like this with someone like like Carl Weathers, who's such a fun actor, and he's shown through numerous roles what he could do, because they were mostly dramatic, I believe,
Mhm.
up until this time. In this one, you get to see the comedy chops that we really hadn't seen before. So it's just more of his talent, because you've got someone like Adam Sandler, who's a comedic actor, and Carl Weathers, who you wouldn't expect, and he just pulled it off so well that it's a joy to watch. I freaking love Happy Gilmore for two reasons. One, that fight with Bob Barker, and Carl Weathers as Chubbs, the golf instructor.
Absolutely, Lorena. And we were just so lucky to see Carl in so many shows. He really is a huge, symbol and uh person who's had a profound effect over pop culture. It just really is difficult to really, wrap up and explain it. He was someone who was always a strong presence in entertainment, and in not a surprise at this, has
Mhm.
had such an influence over modern pop culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of pop culture, and I'm hoping that I can like get this to show up, but I don't think I am with the one I wanted to. The thing I wanted to show, but that doesn't matter. One of the shows that, yes, I watch a lot of freaking cartoons, especially on Cartoon Network. One of my favorite shows on the Cartoon Network is Regular Show, and I used to watch this. Um, Not only was it freaking funny, but you had people like Mark Hamill doing voiceovers in this film. And not only did you have Mark Hamill, but, and they don't have a picture of this, but I remember the character, the god of baseball. I mean, so I'm sorry,
Yes.
not baseball, excuse me, the god of
Basketball.
basketball,
Yes.
voiced by Carl Weathers. Again, another case of people writing these shows who have like the same childhood background that we do, bringing these like pop culture icons to do voiceovers.
Yes,
It's
Lorena.
just the voice. I mean, it's you it takes a lot of chops to be a voice actor, especially a notable voice actor like James Earl Jones's voice. We know his voice, Ian McShane, we know his voice. Um Mark Hamill was pretty good at like masking his voice because I didn't know he was Skips, and I'd been watching this show for I don't know how long, and it turned out that that he was Skips, but Carl Weathers' voice, I'm like, God, basketball, yeah.
Yeah, it is quite remarkable. I love that we are seeing these iconic actors doing so many voiceovers in so many different roles. And, it's like, I think it shows that even in, not that Carl Weathers wasn't willing to show up to set, because clearly he was, because he was in The Mandalorian all this time. But I think it does show that there's so much more talent that these actors have to give. And I'm so glad that we have this medium, whether it's an animated series, whether it's a, audio book or an audio drama, or a radio drama. I'm
Mhm.
so glad that so many of these actors are continuing their careers in this media. Is this him?
Yes, the god of basketball. I saw this and I was literally on the floor. I was laughing so hard. I was just like, it's like I love the regular show, and again, I love it when they bring in these voice cameos of just pop culture icons that we know. And with Carl Weathers, again, it's hilarious, absolutely freaking hilarious to to watch this, especially with the basketball spinning rims that he had, like on his SUV, and he walks out, and he's got like the winged sneakers.
Yeah, I do see that.
Yeah.
I love that. It is really funny when you said he's the god of basketball. He literally looks like a god. He's glowing. That
Hmm.
must be so much fun to watch, Lorena.
Oh my gosh, it was absolutely, absolutely, absolutely fun. Absolutely fun. And speaking of fun roles, another role that I didn't expect for him to be in, but I thought it was freaking hilarious. He was in Toy Story 4. Now, who he was in Toy Story 4? He was Combat Carl. Okay, so if
Oh,
you
wow.
remember from the first Toy Story movie where Sid had like a firecracker attached to it, and Woody's like, oh no, it's a Combat Carl because they couldn't say G.I. Joe, they said Combat Carl. Well, in Toy Story 4, in the garden of discarded toys in the park, uh, they had 3 Combat Carls. Carl Weathers doing the voice for, like, all of them, and the
Oh my
one who,
gosh.
for some reason, he never got his high five. The other ones high-fived each other, but they didn't high five in the middle. So, yes, that was Combat Combat Carl had all his different incarnations, but having Carl Weathers do the voice like, all 3 of them. So, if your little ones are watch Toy Story 4, Carl Weathers, Combat Carl.
Oh, I just love it, Lorena. As I said, I love how these actors, regardless of their age, still doing roles, these voiceover roles that are so important in today's day and age. And it's not anything new. I mean, there's been radio for a long time, and I don't know if people realize, but there's probably more audio dramas and animated dramas being filmed than, let's say, in-person live action um, going on. So this career that he had as a voiceover actor, not a surprise. We I mean, once you realize it's Carl Weathers, of course you do get a picture in your mind, but he was so incredibly talented, Lorena, just really an amazing talent. You don't even have to see him in order to feel that. So it's wonderful that he was able to do this as well.
Yeah, I love this. I love this so much. As a fan of Pixar, the Toy Story films, granted, they really could have done without Toy Story 4, but either way, I went to go see it. There is so much voice talent, especially voice talent that has passed away. Like we've lost Don Rickles, um, the lady who played George Costanza's mom. I'm forgetting her name, but she and Don Rickles were Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head in the Toy Story film. So they're no longer with us. Jim Varney, who played Slinky Dog, he's unfortunately no longer with us. And Carl Weathers is also in the Toy Story lexicon. He's no longer with us. So again, as a Pixar fan, it weighs very heavily. I think also oh my gosh, I think Paul Rubens, I forget who he was. He also did a character in Toy Story. So again, that's another property that's in such high regard that while you don't see Carl Weathers' face, you will know his voice, and they always will know him as Combat Carl, the one who didn't get his high five. Oh, which brings us actually to the last and the most famous for a lot of people, and for some people not the most famous, but the fact that he's part of a galaxy that we love so much and an IP that we love so much. And of course, that's the Mandalorian, with him showing up as Grief Karga when we first see him. And he's in that, I don't want to say it's not like Mos Eisley Cantina, but it is kind of like Mos Eisley Cantina. And the camera pans and and you see him. And for fans of his work, you're just like, yes, it's Carl freaking Weathers. I can't wait to see what he does this time.
Yeah, Lorena, I think there was a great expectation. I mean, of course, he plays someone, and of course, in this galaxy, these guys, I guess maybe they could be hundreds of years old, in the Star Wars IP. But what I found interesting was that we do see in season one where Carl Weathers has to pick up a blaster, if you will,
Mhm.
and in a very interesting twist, he has a piece of Beskar that he got from the client, and he put it in his shirt, or in his pocket. And when somebody shoots at him, um, he gets shot in the Beskar. I got hit in the Beskar. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
a comment that's made a lot. And it looks like he's down for the count, but he's actually alive. The Beskar, um, you know, diverted the harmful shot from the gun. So Carl was still around. And, I think it was interesting how we had, I guess I'm not going to say friction, but they hadn't established how Grief Karga was going to play a role, but he plays quite an important role oftentimes in the series by providing the means for the Mandalorian to do what he needs to do. That whole
Mm-hmm.
Mandalorian clan wouldn't survive without Grief Karga. They needed him to get work for them, and it was essential. Grief Karga knew where of course he knew where the Mandalorians were, although it's not said. He knew that they were down in these catacomb areas and didn't say anything. At least that's my belief. Carl Weathers, of course, knows everything that's going on that
Mm-hmm.
planet. I can't remember if it's Arvala 4 or what the name of the planet is, but the point is that he knows, like, for example,
Navarro? Is it
Navarro. Thank you
Navarro?
so much. Yes,
Okay.
it's
Just hit
Navarro.
me, man.
Yeah, thank you. And I think what's so interesting about Grief Karga's existence, and he's very conscious. And he's kind of like knows the vein of what the bounty hunter guild and what the other bounty hunters think about and what's important to them. And that was critical in really in Djarin making decisions of what he was going to do and what he could get away with. He knew Grief Karga wasn't going to send a whole bunch of men after him necessarily in the way that he could have. Grief Karga could have sent a whole army after him. But I think that Grief Karga wanted to see how things were going to play out, because even perhaps Grief Karga needed to have a shakeup in things. There needed to be a change.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been playing this bounty hunter game maybe for 50 years or so, and maybe he'd had enough of it. Um, so you never know how characters can develop and where they can lead and take a story. And we saw this incredible connection between Mando, which obviously existed before we got there, before we started to observe
Right.
what's going on. But I love how he tells him, this one doesn't have a this, or this one doesn't have a chain, or whatever it is. And he knows Mando is going to be like, so what are you expecting me to do? If anybody can do it, it's Mando. But I think Grief Karga's intent was not just to make money, but to get the client out of the way, to get him off world. And it backfired, right, Lorena? Like, the client
Mm-hmm.
suddenly came over and pushed him out. So
Yeah.
Grief Karga ended up needing the Mandalorian to kind of straighten things out. And if Mandalorian hadn't had that confrontation, if he hadn't grabbed Grogu, Grief Karga would still be under the thumb, if you will, of the client, and ultimately, whoever might be pushing the new empire, or whatever you want to call it, this organization, you know, greatly fed through these guys who are still around, still believe in this oppression. So Grief Karga needed him, and I think Grief Karga was kind of hoping that Mando would push back against this. And I don't think Grief Karga for a second thought that any of the other guys, the other bounty hunters, were going to risk their neck for this. He knew Mando had this principle now, in a sense that
Mm-hmm.
it was important to him. And once he realized that, I think he saw his opportunity to step in and clean up this town
Absolutely.
with clean up the town with the remaining Mandalorians who were also helping him in a sense at some point, so that the place could turn into a livable Navarro could turn into a livable place for everybody. So, I think that was an important element of the story. He needed to be there to give additional purpose, and also a way for Mando to reach out to him and say, I need assistance, or can you help me with this? I just
Mm-hmm.
love the rapport that he had in the story. And he represents what I think is the heart and soul of a lot of the galaxy, because of so many people who live on in the outer regions of the galaxy and are dependent and wholly running themselves. They don't have a whole bunch of forces who are willing to come out. We've seen time and time again, forces aren't willing to come out and defend these guys. So they're pretty much on their own in defending themselves. And having a Mandalorian or two on, on your speed dial is helpful. When you're in a bind, it's like, that is very helpful. But also the Mandalorians need him too. So this is
Mm-hmm.
this relationship of I've got your back. This is what I was talking about. It's so important when somebody has your back. And Grief Karga. If Grief Karga has your back, you're gold.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of having someone's back, and I think this is the perfect way to close out this video about this amazing actor that is no longer with us. Gina Carano says Carl Weathers called her after the Mandalorian firing, didn't want me to give up.
That is not a surprise.
No, and if this isn't in a nutshell the crux of who Carl Weathers was as an actor, as a fellow actor, as a human being, and as a friend, I don't know what is, because I know there were talks in the spheres about, well, how come he didn't say XYZ, and how come he didn't put this on Twitter, and how come he didn't do this, and how come he didn't do that. It's like, look, if you're friends with someone and something happens to your friend, you're not putting that stuff in the public eye. You're not doing that. You are contacting them one-on-one. Your concern isn't what you put out in the public to say about this. Your concern is for your friend and making sure that they're making sure that they're okay.
Absolutely, Lorena. Private conversations don't all have to be in the public domain. And certainly we know that there are millions of conversations happening that we will never know about, never hear, and it's nobody's business. So no one needs to know about it. I think that in Gina's case, she had a lot of people, more than what most people believe, having her back. And it doesn't matter whether there's a checklist and we all know everybody who said they support her. We don't have to know all that. That's her
Mm-hmm.
own private business. For the most part, Gina has been very private about things. She could have made a real stink about this and gone to court about it. She could have fought back pretty hard on this. And as I said before, the reason why the show was not as successful as it could have been after that last episode is because they got rid of Gina Carano. She was the most popular, let's say, female character on the show and in Star Wars at the time of her firing. And, that's what they did. That was a decision that they made to do that from a creative point of view. No real executive would have done something like this at the height of a show for a company. And Lorena, you and I were talking about, Disney, I guess, more or less, and the member call that's coming, not the member call, the shareholders call, member here.
Q1 earnings call. Mm-hmm.
The Q1 earnings call. And, I think one example of the misstep of doing something like what they did with Gina Carano is that
Mm-hmm.
letter, and the one I'm talking about, where they decided that they are going to collectively say, Disney has to start making money again and quality entertainment. And these guys created their website that said they have to start doing this because it's costing the business money. It's devaluing Disney shares. And I don't remember the name of them, but this is exactly the type of behavior like this. There are always going to be stars and people you work with that don't have the same views as you. In fact, most of them will not have the same views as you. You just go on with your life and you don't let it affect you, like the rest of us professionals who have to do this day in and day out. The question is, when you have a responsibility to an entire corporation and they're the stockholders of the corporation and the businesses that depend on that, you don't get to go ahead and say you're just going to willy-nilly fire someone because of something they said. You just listen and you make your own decisions. You keep that inside and you go on with your day, happy-go-lucky, continuing to earn as much as you can and value the company as much as you can. That's what you do as a professional. So it's a legitimate argument of these guys. I don't know who they are right now, who but you know the thing I'm talking about, where they
Yeah,
the website and they're like, look at how it's devalued. Look at what you guys are doing. You need to start making good entertainment again. It's this type of behavior that they did to her that cuts off good entertainment. That is
mhm,
anti cash, creation. This sort of thing did nothing for the company. It made the company look bad, actually. It looks very
mhm.
bad from a PR standpoint. And in the end, no one is going to be giving them kudos for destroying a show, which, mind you, was not the greatest show on earth, but a lot of people liked it, and it increased the value of the IP. Not a lot of people are giving them kudos for getting rid of somebody who made the company money.
Exactly, exactly. And a lot of people were just like, nope, I'm done. I'm completely done with it. And I see what Deadline's trying to do, because it wasn't just, hey, this is a great post that she made. No, they had to go into the whole comparison with which got her fired, because it's not the highlight of, well, say highlighting what got her fired. What you need to highlight is what Gina said about her friend. And I'm going to read through this. This is perfect. So this is her post on Instagram. Hearing the news of Carl Weathers passing today is shocking. I'm going to struggle through these words. I was so looking forward to giving Carl the biggest hug at one of these fan expos I heard we were both going to be at this year. Yeah, because I believe he was supposed to be at MegaCon this
Mhm.
weekend. And I was looking forward to possibly seeing him. She says, I look forward to that reunion. Carl called me directly after I was fired. I wasn't in an emotional state where I could pick up the phone because of how upset I was. Definitely understandable. But we did end up speaking later on. He was gentle and encouraging and didn't want me to give up. He was letting me know that he wasn't throwing me away. He was trying to keep my hope alive in what seemed like quite hopeless scenario. He showed me he cared. That is who he was. I bonded with him very closely on Mando season 1 and 2. Jon Favreau felt he would be a good mentor to me because we both shared an athlete turned actor bond. So Jon had him direct my first episode in season 2 of Mando. I
Mhm.
believe. Yeah, isn't that cool?
Mhm. I love it.
That's so cool. And then she says, I believe had we gotten to Rangers of the New Republic, yeah, that was actually going to happen until they went and, canned her. Carl would have directed me in much more.
Mhm.
John F. was right. We were a great fit.
And
Well,
certainly,
there's,
I'm sorry.
oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go over there.
Certainly, why not have somebody who knows how to do fight scenes direct somebody else who does fight scenes? They have similar backgrounds. She understands what it is to fight and to do movies that involve that sort of combat. You want someone who has it. They had great chemistry. They understood one another. He knew her background. He knew that she was from Alderaan. There was certainly this unspoken look at that shot. There was certainly this unspoken camaraderie between the two of them. And it's not easy. You know what, Lorena? It's not easy to get a whole cast together that have chemistry. It's not the easiest thing to
No.
do. And I'm seeing on some shows, some very popular network shows, where they've got a cast together on paper, it looks good, but together they don't have chemistry or something's missing. It's very hard to get this kind of, thing together where everybody works so well. Look at the two of them. They look like they're about to conquer the galaxy, Lorena.
And
They're about
I
to
freaking loved
conquer the
it.
galaxy. They're going to
I
take a look at
freaking
this.
loved it.
It's like, damn, look at this. It's breaking my heart.
Just I know, and this is so beautiful what she's writing. So just to continue, she says Carl was a mentor to me on set. He would put both of his arms on my shoulders and look me directly in the eyes to calm my spirit.
Oh.
He had a wonderful perspective of telling a story that can only come through his experience and wisdom that he shared with me to help make me shine. I cherish those moments.
Oh my goodness, Lorena, I can't even.
Oh man, I tell you, it's I adored making him laugh. I always wanted to figure out how to make him smile where the corner of his mouth would start to crack, and I knew I had him, but then out came his bellowing laugh. His laugh, I can hear clearly now. His laugh that I will miss dearly. His big booming voice echoed through the stage, and you just knew that this is what a movie star truly is.
Yes, Lorena, and certainly that is a huge part of making this Hollywood machine work. Having successful stories, having people show up and watch shows. A lot of it has to do with having stars who can perform and do what we're asking them to do that look a certain way. Looks matter in all of this. The chemistry of these guys, their camaraderie matters so much. And you can see it on the set that they have good camaraderie, that they get along. We want to see that. We don't want to see, characters that don't get along. We don't want to see any of that. We want to see the tightness. We want to see a crew. We want to see people working together. So much of that is important in a lot of what we're watching and a lot of what we're not getting, and why shows are not as successful as they can be. This casting, whoever the CSAs are, God bless them, but the casting is so critical. You can't replace Gina Carano. You cannot replace ever Carl Weathers. There hasn't been anybody like him. To be honest with you, he's irreplaceable. And as a director, I'd forgotten, Lorena, that he was directing episodes. Um, yeah, I can't. I can't.
I I can't either. Let's see. He obviously shined on screen, but man, did he light up with such passion in that director's chair.
Aw.
I'm going to miss my friend and mentor and that mischievous little sparkle in his eye, which we've seen so many times on screen. He was one of the greats and quite a groundbreaker. I am flooded by all the precious memories we had together. My condolences to his family and loved ones. He was a great man. Rest in peace, my dear friend. And as he would say, and he would always put this on Twitter, hashtag be peace, my friend, be peace. And she has a
Aw.
heart, and then she has a broken heart. And that's how I believe a lot of us are feeling with the passing of Carl Weathers. We are just so brokenhearted. And if you think we're brokenhearted as fans, go and see all of the tributes that his co-stars are saying about him, especially on Twitter. You've got, Adam Sandler, Giancarlo Esposito, the one from Sylvester Stallone. I mean,
God.
it is it is so tough to watch, but with all of the absolute nonsense that's been going on in the world and that's been going on in the interwebs, and especially what goes on Twitter on a regular basis, seeing this outpouring of of love, of props, of reminiscing and tributes when it comes to Carl Weathers is just it's a wonderful thing to see, and why we definitely had to talk about him in this episode of the podcast. So any closing words from you, my dear?
Um, just I want to see. I think, and I hope that he encourages anybody out there who wants to be a movie star, to bring back that sex appeal, that
Mhm.
masculine sex appeal that he
Mhm.
inherently had, even even in his 70s. He had this masculine sex appeal where I wouldn't be surprised if there was a woman, he's sitting at the table and Navarro, and there's a woman across on the other side of the table with a drink. I wouldn't be surprised with that, non-alcoholic, whatever you want. But
Mhm.
yeah, there would be some ladies, lucky enough to be sitting by his side. So I was going to say that, but also someone who um, went ahead and found even more talents. Obviously, is an incredible athlete, but also as a director and doing his voice acting as well. Just doing so many wonderful things in entertainment. That's why we love to see entertainers who can do stuff like this. But that sex appeal, Lorraine, that is all toxic male. I
Oh,
love that
yes.
sex appeal. Any of you guys out there want to be stars? Bring on your sex appeal. Everybody has
Yes.
unique sex appeal. I love that toxic male sex appeal. I always think about Carl Weathers in that way with a smile on his face. It really makes me happy to think of it that way. And may he rest in peace, and condolences to his family.
Yes,
That's all
indeed.
I gotta say about that, Lorena.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I know it's hard losing a family member like this, and I wish nothing but God's peace and blessings for Carl Weathers' family. And I hope that probably not now because it's such a private grief at the moment, but eventually when time passes and healing starts to set in, just how many people love this man's acting and who he was as a person and how fundamental his presence was to a lot of us who grew up watching him and the ones who know him as like the god of basketball and Combat Carl.
Yeah.
As well. So, folks, I know this went a little bit long, but you know how we like to do these deep dives from time to time, and we absolutely had to
Yes.
for the amazing life of Carl Weathers. Make sure you subscribe to her of Positive Fandom and Roman Empire Matters.
Thank you.
Be sure that you are subscribed to me. Let us know in the comments your feelings on Carl Weathers' passing and his works of his that are your favorites. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.